Well, welcome everyone to the Evolving Man podcast. I'm the founder of the Awakened Man and your host, Alan DeMonso. We make promises nearly every day, don't we? From committing to taking out the garbage, to picking something up at the store, for our work, for our families, and even promises to ourselves. Yet there are many times that we don't follow through with those promises. And each time we do, we give a little piece of ourselves away as men. So today, my guest has spent 25 years honing his skills and keeping the promises he makes to others and especially to himself. And from his experience, we're going to learn a 3-step process for how to stay in integrity and a whole lot more. Now, before we get into that, just want to remind you to hit like, subscribe, and share on your favorite channel and wherever it is that you're listening to this podcast. So that'll allow you to stay up to date on what we're up to, and we can spread the word around the world. So now with that, let's get on with today's episode.
Today's man knows who he is, where he stands, and what he aspires to become. Solid in his convictions, owner of his destiny, ever evolving into husbands and fathers our wives and children expect and deserve. We are the masters of our life and the leaders of our homes and community. Welcome to the movement. Stay strong, my brother.
As you know, I always like to start off with a couple of questions to help us set the stage for the talk. My first question I have for you is, when was the last time that you made a promise to yourself that you were able to keep? And have you ever dishonored yourself by breaking a promise because the opportunity in front of you was too good to pass up? You know, if you answered yes to either one of these questions, then stick around, because my guest today, Jason Hewlett, is going to give us some much needed insight on what it takes to maintain our integrity in the face of any challenge or opportunity in our life. But first, allow me to introduce Jason. So Jason Hewlett is having delivered thousands of presentations over 2 decades, and he's the only speaker in the world teaching leadership in a performance of an uncanny musical and comedy impressions. And I'm not sure if we're going to get into that today, but that's a little bit about Jason and utilizing his legends of the stage. And the promise is a keynote speech that he feels is like a show with a proven process, immediately implementable, and takeaways to transform our businesses and our leadership skills. So Jason is the author of the Facebook post entitled, "I Saw My Wife at Target Today," which has been seen by more than 100 million people. Can you believe that? 100 million people. And a recent and one of the youngest inductees in the prestigious Speaker Hall of Fame. His talk inspires leadership from the perspective of a promise, and while giving attendees an engaging and entertaining and educational experience all in one. I'm just so excited that I get to introduce Jason and have him here on the show with me today. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's just a blessing. I had done another podcast with another individual, with Richard at Bodian, actually, and he had mentioned about having a guy in mind that would be a perfect fit. And when you answered the call and said you'd be on the show, I was just blown away and so grateful that you've been able to, carve off a little bit of time with us today.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And I'm thrilled to be a part of this because I love what you've put together something really wonderful for men that is much needed. So it was nice of Richard to introduce us.
Yeah, right on. So, what I really liked about your message, and I'm hoping we're going to get a chance to explore a little bit today, is for how men we are able to hold true to our integrity and how many times we get that chance to exercise our integrity muscle. But really, before I get specifically into that, I want to get into some questions about your work in the book, The Promise to the One. And I wanted you to get your take on what you see are challenges facing men today.
Awesome. Yeah. So I get to run around the world as a keynote speaker, and that's a fun thing. People are confused by that, especially my neighbors. They're like, wait a minute, you speak for a living? And that's confusing if you have a real job, I guess, because I get to walk around and talk on a stage for an hour and get paid as much as some people make over a good chunk of time working really hard. And so I'm very grateful for something that's so obscure that I do for a living, but I found that the reason it's valued so highly and I get paid a decent amount for it is just because the skill of communication and inspiring people, if you can do that in one setting for, say, 100 or 1,000 people at a time, and they go out and do their jobs better, they live their lives greater, and they have a deeper sense of commitment and purpose, man, you can really get a lot of ROI out of that. And so that's why they bring someone like me in to entertain their their people and to get them, just to another level of thinking about their life. And as you said, I do entertain mixing with this message. And so what I'm doing, and part of my history is I started in Las Vegas as an entertainer. And as an entertainer, I was doing voices of other artists. And so I would come out on stage and sing like the Bee Gees. I do very high voices compared to probably most of the men that are listening, but like, well, you can tell by the way I sing the song, I'm singing high, but not for long. I'm still alive, still alive. And everybody would go, well, that's kind of crazy. And then they'd laugh. And then I'd break into the next voice and I'd be like, I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. So I'm doing Louis Armstrong and I'm bouncing between all these voices, and people really found it entertaining. I did it for years, and I still do that in my keynote speech. But the reason I'd share that is because I'm having to go to a level of commitment that a lot of people shy away from, because they're like, wait a minute, you've taken it too far, and that's really part of the message is how committed are you to the bit, to the routine, even to your job. If you're thinking about for yourself every day, do you show up ready to perform, ready to give it your best? Or are you just like, I got to just get through this day. I'm just going to cut a corner here, cut a corner there. Well, in some cases, if you work in safety, you could hurt yourself or others. Mm-hmm. And in certain cases of communication, you could really mess something up in a big way all the way down the line. If you're in customer service and you're not showing up 100%, man, you're ruining the brand for the entire company because you're the face of it. And so with this message of doing impressions and music and comedy mixed with stories about commitment, which I know we talked before we started that's a big word for you, which I love that about you, Alan. I'll tell you that it's interesting how the promise came about, and it really came about because as an entertainer, I found out that I was being courted by Las Vegas hotels and casinos, wanted me to come and perform and do my show. And this was when I was 25 years old. I'm now 43. But as a 25-year-old trying to make a living doing my act of impressions and comedy and music, I finally came down to one casino and offer that was pretty darn awesome in Las Vegas. And that's really the dream of a one-man performer. And as I'm sitting there with my wife across the table from a hotel casino billionaire, and I'm being offered the dream gig of a lifetime, my face on billboards, my name in lights, money, all the stuff you're going to need for a long time. It came down to a choice, really. And the choice was, are you willing to change the way that you've been performing in order to appease our needs and our audience? And I found that to be a really transformative moment, because this was my moment, Alan, to decide, am I going to live a legacy of integrity, or should I take this great offer that'll change my life and financially will be set, but I will have to change the act that was family friendly. And that's how it began. That's how I always wanted it to be. And I had to walk away from that opportunity in order to keep the promise. And that's how this message was born. And now I get to go around the world and share it. Such an honor.
That is so awesome, Jason. And I was reading about you and that story, and I was going to ask you, so thank you so much for talking about it. And I think it's so important that how often do we sell out on ourselves, and maybe not to that type of scale, but even the smallest sellout, and how we don't stay true to who we are. And the other story I was hoping that we could discuss today also was, like, you were in school, you were pretty much a pretty good high school basketball player, weren't you? And there was opportunity, you could get scholarships and, go to school and, on scholarship, but something else came up and you started to talk a little bit about this entertainment side, and you found out that was pretty good. And then you went to BYU, and I was wondering if you mind telling the story about, your transition from a sports guy. Now you're going to be a, entertainer, and what that was all about and what that experience was like. Because I think that was another profound, life-changing opportunity for you as well.
Yeah, that's funny you'd bring it up. The BYU story is a kind of a classic one. For those that don't know what BYU is, it's called Brigham Young University, and it's a religious education university. And of course, I grew up in the same culture as that religion. And so being somebody who's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as Mormons, I went to this college, but actually I didn't even attend there, Alan. The story may seem deceiving, but it was for a youth camp in the summertime at BYU. And I was planning to go there because I had been offered a scholarship. And so I was at the camp, and I thought I was going to be a basketball player. That was really my goal and my dream. And I had one fellow who was the coach there, and he said, "Hey, I'd love to offer you a full ride scholarship because you're so entertaining." And I was like, "Entertaining? I thought you wanted me to play basketball." He said, "No, you've reached the limit of your talent as a basketball player." He said, "But I want you around because you're funny." And I was like, "Oh man, really?" And so I found out that in that time frame, I could sing, I could dance, I could make people laugh. And I was now even being offered a scholarship to go there. I never ended up going there. But what happened was I did go to this summer camp, and it was a singing camp, it's singing and dancing. And they had big auditions for the talent show where we got to perform for the parents on the last night. And I remember how excited I was that I came into this opportunity where they said, "Hey, we need you to sing a song just like everybody else if you want to be in the talent show." And I heard everyone else singing, and they were like opera good, like way beyond my capability. And the next thing I know, I'm like, I can't sing like these guys. They're too good. And so what did I do? I decided to throw something out that I knew they would not, they've never seen anyone do before. So what I did is I did Michael Jackson as a dancer. And what's funny about this story in reality is that Michael Jackson as a dancer at BYU is not something you're allowed to do. And I didn't realize that because this was in the late 90s. And I get up there and I start dancing, and I start doing those moves, and as I did that one move that Michael's infamous for, not the signature move moonwalk, but rather a move where he grabs himself in an inappropriate place. I did that. And the crowd of religious people that was there waiting, before the next night when the parents would come, the crowd of attendees and others, I thought they were not going to like it, but they did. They thought it was hilarious. And so they cheered. And so I did it again. Hee hee. And they screamed some more. And then I just kept getting racier and racier. And Alan, then I did the moonwalk. And at the end, instead of just closing the performance, I decided to do a spin move, and I ripped my shirt off. And I ended with my arms out and went, "Oh!" And everyone gave me a standing ovation. It was awesome. And I was like, "Oh man, I'm going to win the talent contest tomorrow night." But as I go backstage, I'm getting high fives from everybody until I came to the camp director, who looked at me with folded arms, and he said, "What on earth were you thinking, young man?" And I said, "That was the best thing that's ever happened at BYU." And he said, "Young man, you are disqualified from the talent contest. You know better than that. You were raised different than that. You need to choose which side you're going to be on. Because if you're just entertaining for the crowd to cheer for you, you're going to feel way less about your purpose and yourself through the rest of your life. So you need to make a choice. But you are disqualified." And my friend, I was so mad at this guy because I was a hotshot 17-year-old, thinking I knew what was best. But eventually I realized, as I was thinking through it, maybe he does know what's best for me. Maybe he is a man of God. Why wouldn't I listen to him? And I made a choice that night that I said, I'm never going to perform anything on a stage that would make a family be uncomfortable. Or have a grandma have to cover the grandson's eyes that's watching. And that changed my life. That's the reason I think I turned that Las Vegas opportunity away. It was because I thought, you know what, I know which side I'm on. Yeah. And I'm on the side of keeping a promise to me. And so with your question of integrity and selling out and so forth, I think everybody has the opportunity. Mine may have sounded like a big story of selling out to the opportunity. And it is a big deal, I guess. I'm now known for that. But this happens to anybody that's listening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure of it. Whether it's selling out because you're thinking, you know what, if I just do this one thing, I could take this job, and yeah, I'm going to be away from my family way more than I ever have been, but it'll be worth it for the money, the extra bucks that are going to come in. That's a variation of selling out.
For sure.
And so, or it comes down to our health, or it comes down to our relationships with people. There are different variations of selling out. And so I share that story of BYU and of the promise to say that I believe that when we're young, we have opportunities to make or break the promise. Mm-hmm. And it very well could define the way that we live the rest of our lives, because when the opportunity comes, like the Las Vegas casino offer when I'm 25, Alan, I didn't have to make that choice at that moment. It had already been made for me because I made a promise a long time ago to keep it.
Wow, that is so powerful. And absolutely right. I love that we dialed back a bit to when you were 17. And I think it's so true that we don't understand the promises that we make to ourselves at that age, how much it can define who we are as men moving forward in life, and being able to really articulate and understand that. So I wanted to ask you, why is it you think that we tend to break promises to ourselves and others? Is it a question of we don't understand our values, or is it of integrity, or is it something else? Why is it you think that from all of the presentations you've done that you've been able to distill why we continue to break promises?
Well, that's a classic question, brother, because I'll tell you, that's the main reason why people don't make promises in the first place, is because we figure, I'm not good at keeping promises anyway, so I'm not going to make any. And it's the same with goals or resolutions or commitments. We say, well, I'm just going to ruin that commitment, so why make it? And then you think about life itself, when you think about some of the greatest commitments you've ever made to yourself, whether it was the commitment to get in the best shape of your life, or the commitment to not scroll and doom scroll on the internet and instead to pick up a book and read for that time, or that great commitment of getting married. I mean, I look at so many men that I'm like, man, if you were married, you'd be doing so many more significant things in your life. And that's not to say that a single guy can't, but if you're married, you have a serious commitment to God and to yourself and to your wife. Mm. Well, you make that commitment, you're going to fall through on promises you never would have even considered had you just been a single dude. And so I like to talk about the fact that when we make a promise and then we break a promise, yes, we have to do our best to figure out why we did. But I believe that truly it comes down to breaking promises really is just, well, Friedrich Nietzsche said, a majority of us just forgot the promise we made. So do we just space it? And maybe that's, I'm not going to eat sugar, and I'm going to, keep the promise to be in the best shape of my life. Whatever those simple promises may be, or the real significant ones, such as I'm getting married and I'm going to be faithful. When it comes to the promise, do we have to write it down? I know I have a ring on my finger. My fourth finger has a ring on it. The ring is a reminder. So what are the reminders of your promises? I don't know if you noticed, Alan, but I know as a podcaster, you probably did. While we were just talking a minute ago and I was telling that story, my alarm went off on my phone, and I apologize for that. It's very unprofessional of me. I'll tell you why that went off. Because I have an alarm set every 3 hours to remind me to eat. And part of my promise for this, this month that we're recording this, is that I've been doing intermittent fasting for over a year, and I've lost a good chunk of weight. But now I'm changing things up to just mess with my body a little bit, and I'm going to eat 6 to 7 meals a day. And so I had to set an alarm to remind me. And I said to my wife, I swear to you, brother, I said to her, that alarm is going to go off at exactly the wrong time sometime. And it went off right in the middle of the interview. I apologize. But that I find it kind of interesting to think that's me making sure I don't break the promise. And of course, I'm going to hang with you here and not go eat the food now. But I'm just telling you, that's one of the reasons we break promises. I think we just forget. And other times it's just not painful enough to keep it. So like if I did swear off sugar and somebody brings me a giant cake, now, is there a choice to be made? Or do I just say, that is so thoughtful, thank you so much, and then I go in the house and I offer it to my family and then I walk away? To some, that may sound like not a big deal, but to me, that's the promise.
100%, 100%. I love that analogy of the cake, right? Because one of the things that we're talking about this month's lesson with my men's work is on crucial conversations. And we talk about being in that position where we have the fool's choice. The fool's choice is, well, do I tell that person who just gave me the cake the truth that I don't want it? Or do I want to keep them? Do I want to keep them as a friend or not hurt their feelings? When really the question we should be asking ourselves is, how can I be 100% honest and authentic with them and 100% respectful of what they're trying to offer? And I think, that was the first thing that went through my mind when I heard you talk about the cake. And I think it's so true, right? And we do tend to maybe forget, but do we really forget? Because I think our bodies tell us when we're going to do something that we know is outside of who we are. And maybe we didn't articulate our promise. And, truly, but we may get in a position, you talked about being faithful. And I wonder, being on that other end of that spectrum where you're about to make that mistake, that judgment call, and are you not feeling that pressure? Because inside, very well that it's a massive promise that you're breaking. And so I just, as those some of the thoughts that I just wanted to share as I was listening to you talk about it.
Well said, man. I'll tell you, with what you're talking about is that inner conscience that we all have. Mm-hmm. Some might refer to it as a spirit of God, or, your values talking to you, your Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder. But that is a real thing. Mm-hmm. And if there is a way to articulate or to write our promises down, I really encourage people to consider writing in a journal. Because the journal is the ultimate therapeutic practice, along with the perfect way to prepare our minds as to what life we want to create. And then it's the perfect accountability partner as well. So if I write in the journal in the morning as a part of my daily meditation practice after a good workout, maybe a cold shower, I know you're a Canada guy, so that's probably going to go jump in an ice bath. And then I'm going to sit down and read the best books, and then I'll write in my journal some of those powerful thoughts that come to us before we've opened the news and the world and the social media and all those things that can fill our lives and minds. But if we can then create from our journal, the promises that we've made to ourselves and remind ourselves what our day will become, then we can truly be the architects of our lives. And then at the end of the day, you just sit there and meditate and say, which ones did I keep? Which ones did I break? Which ones are forgivable? Because the majority of them are. Mm-hmm. And we can just make a new commitment tomorrow to be better. I know this one, Alan. I for years have struggled as a dad who travels. And I have 4 children and a beautiful wife. And 3 of my oldest are teens now, and 1 is 10. And as I'm looking at these kids and I'm interacting with them on the very few little moments that we have together that really do matter, which is before school, after school, dinner table, those types of places, I know that I'm breaking promises a lot to myself as to the type of energy I bring to that interaction, or the positivity or negativity, the telling it like it is, or holding back just a little bit because I shouldn't say anything too harsh. Why would I project what I failed at and make them feel like a failure? And so I'm constantly going through this process of how can I be a better dad, saying the words that should be the words that I choose so carefully, while still being honest and frank and candid, but uplifting, encouraging, and careful.
Oh, that is absolutely powerful, Jason. It's so true, right? It's about being present And, you truly are the awakened man, the epitome of what it is, the work that I'm attempting to do and get out across the world, for us to show up and be present and be awake of what's going on in front of us, and understanding that all those pieces, including the promises. So we talked a little bit about some of the things that we need to consider about when we have life-changing decisions to make. Well, what would you say are some things that we should consider from your experience on when we have promises or an opportunity that it is in front of us that we may need to, it could challenge us to break a promise?
Yeah, I mean, we have to consider, first of all, what are the ramifications of breaking this promise in this moment? If it just means that we're going to be late to pick up the children in order to land a big sale, that then comes down to, well, where's our value? Mm-hmm. And what are we willing to walk away from or keep? I know that with my children, I've told them, I'm going to do all I can to make it so that when you get in the car with me and I pick you up from school, I will not be on a sales call. And then there are times when they've gotten in and I go, and they know I'm on a sales call. And then I try to wrap it up as fast as I can with the person I'm on so I can be present with the child. Yeah. But in terms of, the longer ramifications of breaking a promise, I would say that it comes down to what's your legacy you're choosing to create for your family and for yourself. And if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I married the wrong person, or this isn't working out, I think I might need to make a big shift. I've been married now for 20 plus years. I'm not as attracted anymore, or life isn't turning out like I wanted, or the kids are growing up, they're almost out of here, so I can break this thing off. Think about your legacy. Mm-hmm. And yes, you might find short moments of happiness in doing a broken promise, but the long-lasting impacts will not bring you fulfillment. It just will not. Yeah. And I've seen that in the lives of too many men who have made that choice when they say, you know what, I'd be happier because the grass is greener on the other side. And I can totally understand, because now that I'm at the age that I am, why men have the thought process that we have after so many years of marriage and the kids are getting older. And there is never a more important time than today to dig deeper into the foundation of your love with your wife, and to go stronger with the relationships you have with your children, and to be more firm in your faith, and to be more foundational in your intentions every day with working out and reading the best books and writing in your journal and doing what you know you should do and eating well. And these are not supposed to be something to add pressure to make you feel bad about yourself. It shouldn't be a burden on your shoulders, but it should be reaffirming to drive your feet into that planted soil that will make it so that you say, this is the tree that is created of my life, and I want the shade to be big. I want the tree to be grand. I want the roots to be deep. Yeah. And in that sense, if we can think that way, we will not cheat. We will not make humongous mistakes. We'll make little mistakes, but they're forgivable. But if we are willing to say, what is my legacy? What do I really want of this life? We'll keep those greater promises.
I just love that you bring this point up, and it's so true that, and there's something that happens to men when I'll say in about our mid 30s to 45ish, maybe even up to 50, where we have those thoughts about, what is life? It's that the old midlife crisis piece, and really the question is what you're suggesting to us is to question about our inner journey. And how have we fertilized our inner journey? Are we ready now to take that tree that we planted 20 years ago and rip it out of the ground? Because that's in essence what we're doing. Or are we willing to go back at that tree and prune it a little bit and trim it and take care of it and nurture it and do things that we've probably been neglecting anyways, because we fall in because that's how life is, right? We fall into patterns that maybe we started to take each other for granted more than we should. We've stopped dating our wives because life is, kids are around, lots of excuses. And I think it's perfect that you bring this piece up about legacy, and really we need more men to think about that piece as opposed to, the new sports car or something else.
Yeah, well, I love that you're talking my language, man, because this is stuff that is of the essence to anybody that's listening, who's actually putting in the time to listen to a podcast like this or to watch it online and say, yeah, I am going to do all I can to live that kind of life because I am that kind of man. I don't walk away. I don't give up. I continue to nurture. I do not chop down the tree. And I'm going to do all I can to nurture each child, each moment, each opportunity, and especially your wife. My wife's birthday as of this recording was yesterday. And she is, now a year older. And she's like, I don't look like I used to, and I don't feel like I used to. And I said, honey, okay, let me just write you a love letter. And I did. I wrote her a nice love letter, and she likes that. But I need to tell her a lot. And it's more now than I had to when we were younger, because it was just kind of simple, I guess. Now it's like, I need to tell her a lot more. And guess what? She also tells me a lot more. She goes, ooh, you're so handsome. Look at that gray hair in your beard, And I'm like, I don't know about that. She goes, no, you are. And so we constantly give each other compliments and lift one another up. And in fact, we decided yesterday, instead of just hanging out and having a birthday at the house, that once the kids went to school, we went on a 2-hour drive one way in a blizzard. And we just went to a place to go eat that was 120 miles away. And then we drove right on back. And I thought, this is love.
Yes.
This is romance. This is dating this woman that I cherish. I worship her. I adore her. I want nothing else of even the opportunities that have come and gone through the years. They're all jealous because they only have eyes for one person. And that's perfect for me. And that's perfect for her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, listen, I know you're a man of faith, as am I. So how has faith guided and grounded you in your life's journey?
Oh, man. I mean, it's wonderful to have a faith to base things around in terms of being able to teach your children something and share that with your family, especially. That's helpful. For me, I know that relationship with child is one level. Relationship with spouse is another level. Relationship with God is a completely different level. And if we can have that relationship with God where we see what kind of man we can become just through the examples of Scripture, through the examples of those that come before us. And if we read back in the Old Testament and we see completely flawed individuals who are talking with God, then we say to ourselves, oh, okay, I guess I can make some dumb mistakes and I can just keep going as well. Repentance is real. Mm. And it's not something that we just do one time. It should be consistent. Prayer is real. And I'm sad for anybody who doesn't believe that there's something wonderful up there watching over us that cares for us. Mm. I believe I and you and everyone listening are children of God. I believe that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that to my core, and I hang on to that. Last year, my mother-in-law almost died. And as I thought, what's going to happen? What's next? And then I remember, oh yeah, I do believe that I'll see her again if she passes. I do believe we can expect a miracle if we have faith enough. And those types of ways of living allow us to just be a bit more purposeful, happier, and more self-assured. She did survive. She did receive a miracle. We're so grateful. But if she had passed, just as many of my friends did last year, I do truly believe I will see them again. I truly believe that I live my life today in order to make them proud so I can hug them later. And I hope that they'll save me a seat in their mansions.
I'm positive there'll be lots of seats for you to choose from, my friend. Doing phenomenal.
You too.
Listen, all of us are going to encounter crossroads in life, right? And it is at this point that we get a chance to exercise our integrity muscle, as I was mentioning earlier. Now, you'd created this 3-step formula that you have in your book. Can you describe that process and what it's all about?
Yeah. So when I do a lot of my musical impressions and comedy, I'm really just bringing out the essence of the artist, trying to capture their voice, their moves, their songs, their dance. And I call it signature moves. And I believe that everybody has a signature move, if not many, that make them uniquely who they are. And so in trying to help people discover their signature moves, because a lot of leaders can't, even if somebody knows what they do for a living and they do it well, or they lead lots of people, if I were to say, hey, write down 5 things that make you unique. What are your signature moves? It freaks your mind out. But if I were to say, hey, write down 5 things you could do to improve, you'd be like, oh, I got 20. I mean, that's simple. Okay, so let's just talk about what we're good at and what we naturally have. I call that the ICM process. It's called identify, clarify, magnify. So if we can identify that we have certain skills, gifts, talents, even aspirations that we want to become, I challenge every audience to try to identify those that makes them who they are. And then we bring in the other people once we've identified maybe our top 10 for ourselves. We then bring in other people that we trust and we clarify with them. It's a refining process. So if I were to say to you, Alan, what do you clarify are some of my signature moves? And I might have identified for myself that I'm funny and that I'm a good singer. You might clarify for me and say, you are funny and a good singer, but I actually would recommend you think of yourself as hilarious. And instead of just a good singer, you're a powerful entertainer. So maybe you clarify for me greater words than I give myself. And then that allows me to have even more words to work with that become my signature moves. So now I've identified my list. You've helped me clarify my list. Now I'm going to magnify it by working on each one individually. So if you did say you are a great entertainer, I might ask myself as part of my promise each day, am I using entertaining in every interaction with every person? Am I using entertaining to build up other people and to make a living? Am I using entertaining on social media? Am I entertaining in my writing and my podcasts? Okay, so now I'm working on just that one thing. Now imagine if you had 20 of those that you could focus on. If I were to say to you, Alan, you're a man of integrity. That then drives into your mind this intentionality of living a life of more integrity because I told you you had it. And so identify, clarify, magnify helps us to discover our signature moves and then equally to share a promise with the world that only we can.
That's outstanding. Outstanding. Completely. Just love that. So listen, if there was one thing that you want our listeners to remember about everything that we've talked about today, what would that be?
Well, I don't think I got to it yet. I would say because of the nature of your listeners, I would say that we should talk about the power of being present and not so distracted. And I only share that message religiously because that is my great Achilles heel. To be distracted is the easiest thing in my life because I have yet undiagnosed things that I'm sure I've worked through and become an entrepreneur and entertainer and speaker. But I'll tell you what, when I am focused, when I'm fully present, I'm good. And when I'm like that with my wife, I'm good. And when I'm that way with my children, I'm good. And if I can be fully present in that which I'm doing, even just something as simple as driving a car and not looking at your phone, if you can make the promise to say to yourself, I'm not going to pick up my phone while I drive today, you've just possibly saved another life. You've just become that much more present. And then you get out of the car and you say, wow, I kept a promise to myself. I did it. That's just a small win, but perhaps a great victory of purpose. And so I might just encourage the men that are watching and that are listening to ask yourself, how can I be more present? And if that's just listening to my children, or when they come in my office and I'm trying to type up a new book, can I stop, turn, look at them, listen, look them in the eye, let them know I see them and I hear them and I love them, give them a hug. And that's it. That's all they need. And then they leave. It's 5 seconds worth or 2 minutes worth, and then it's over. But how can we be more present? That will change the way that we live our lives and keep our promises to others. That
is outstanding. What a phenomenal, powerful way to conclude our meeting here today. So thank you, Jason, for spending time with me. I really appreciated how we were able to unpack a little bit about the promise that we make to ourselves, especially in moments of critical decision-making when we have those that show up in our lives, and to help men live lives of purpose, on purpose, as our motto is with the Awakened Man. So how could our guests get a hold of you? And is there any programs that you're involved in that you would recommend that they could get involved in as well?
I'm mostly on LinkedIn at these points in time. I do some Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all those fun things, but LinkedIn is my favorite place to play. I have a blog that I write on a weekly basis, and it comes out on Sunday mornings. If your folks would like to get that, all they'd have to do is text in the number 22828, and it's JHE. So I think that works in Canada too. I hope so. And if not, then we can find another way, but it's on my website, jasonhewlett.com. So those are some of the places where I like to hang out with people. And I'll tell you, one of my promises to get a podcast rolling this year as well. So that's on my list, and I'll make sure to return and report.
Yeah, right on. That'd be great. Well, I'll make sure all that information is in the show notes so folks can get out and reach you. Jason, I want to thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to have you on the podcast today.
Honored to be a part of it. Thanks for good work. You're doing really important work. I know you know that. Thanks for keeping and living the promise.
You bet. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Evolving Man podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is the Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.